Good evening, everyone. I'm Zen Master Sebastian Rizzon, founding master of the Zen Art Center and the Mind Light Way School of Zen. Thank you for coming tonight. And I give these talks on the I give these on the third Thursday of every month from 7 to 8 p.m. And I also do a guided meditation on the first Thursday of every month at the same time. And you can find these talks and my older talks on our YouTube channel for the Zen Art Center if you want to go back and listen to anything or see some of the talks you missed. So, what is Zen? Zen means the complete engagement with what is happening right now in this moment. It's not concerned with theories, beliefs, or intellectual speculation. It only guides you to the direct experience of being that's not been being tainted by your thoughts. It points you to the source of awareness, which we call mind. But what is mind? A lot of people say your mind is produced by your brain, or your mind is your brain. Science has shown that brain activity correlates with mental experience, but it's never proven that brain produces mind. No one's ever measured a thought or an emotion or an experience directly. They only have measured brain activity, which correlates with someone reporting having experiences. This is only evidence of a correlation, not evidence of causation. The idea that brain creates mind is still only a hypothesis. It's not a fact. There's still no scientific explanation for how the electric signals in the brain become your experience of the color red, or the taste of coffee, or the feeling of love. That's called the hard problem of consciousness, and it's still unsolved. So it's more honest to say, we don't really know what mind is yet. That's the real scientific position. In Zen, we often use koans. They're short paradoxical questions or stories that are used to push your mind beyond logical answers and to help you bypass the rational thinking into a direct experience of your awareness. Tonight, I want to begin with 3 simple koans, not from a book, but from your own life. What is your mind? How would you define it? What is it like for you to experience your mind directly? You don't need to contemplate the answers. Just plant these questions in your mind before we meditate. See what grows out of them when you completely clear your mind from thoughts. Let's begin our meditation tonight with a breathing exercise to help us relax and prepare our body for meditation. When you're sitting, you can sit with your legs crossed. Try to keep if you're in a seat, you can have your feet flat on the floor. Just try to keep your neck and back straight without slouching so you don't get a bad cramp. I usually suggest the right hand, left hand touching your thumbs like this, centered in your lap. If you feel uncomfortable in this position or you get uncomfortable during the meditation, feel free to stand up and stretch out. Just try to be mindful of people meditating around you. So I think that covers the position. So for now, let's just take a few deep breaths. And I want you to slow down your breath and breathe a little bit deeper and slower than you usually do. Visualize your heart in the center of your chest as you breathe. As you listen to me, I just want you to keep slowing down your breath and breathing a little bit deeper. Feel your breath coming in through your nose and mouth and collecting all of the energy from your head and moving it from your head into your heart. Now imagine that you're breathing with your heart. You can place your hand on your chest if you'd like to help with this. Your heart isn't just an organ in your chest. It's a bridge between your body's senses and your awareness that is attuned to the rhythms of the world around you. This slow and deep breathing can be a helpful technique that you can use anytime to relax or reset yourself. Whenever you feel anxious or stressed, or whenever you feel like you need to switch gears. You can use it when you wake up, before you enter a stressful meeting, before you go to sleep, or before you meditate. We're going to continue this for just a few moments, so just relax, and with each breath, try to let go of any stress or tension you're holding in your body. Now we're going to move into a mantra meditation. The word mantra literally means a tool to liberate the mind. In this meditation, we use the mantra to help us free our minds from the usual stream of thoughts, perceptions, and feelings that we experience. The mantra is a focal point of meditation. It could be anything that you use to focus your mind, but in this setting meditation, we're going to be using a word or a phrase repeated silently within your mind. If you try not to think, thoughts will still come, but by focusing on a mantra, you push those thoughts aside. When you're meditating, try to let go of your feelings, opinions, and desire. If a thought comes, just let it go and return to focusing on your mantra. If you don't have a mantra that you like to use, I suggest using the mantra of Kwanseum Bosal. Kwanseum Bosal is the Bodhisattva of love and compassion in Korean Zen. Bodhisattva is an enlightened being that's dedicated themselves to helping others realize their true nature. Kwanseum Bosal is said to have thousands of eyes and hands and see the suffering of all beings and help those who call out her name. Using this mantra brings compassionate energy into your mind when you meditate, which helps you clear your mind. So now, I'm just going to ask everybody to stand up and turn around in your place and just face the opposite direction for this meditation. And we'll turn back around when we're done. So let's come back to the question we started with. What is your mind? Did anyone gain any insight from their meditation?
You can't control the mind as much as you think you can.
Good insight. Does anyone want to hear my answer? Ask me the question.
What's your mind?
Ha! Where does that sound end?
In my ears.
Really?
And then I felt
Where did it begin?
From your voice box.
your son, your mind.
But why?
Your mind.
In the mind. The mind is the source of everything we're aware of. Every thought, every action we take begins in the mind. Without the mind's awareness, there's no perception of anything. And without the mind, there's no sense of being that can even be known. Some might say that scientific evidence suggests that the universe produces the mind, but it relies on a chain of unproven metaphysical assumptions. It's a model constructed within the mind based on observations that were perceived by a mind. And even the idea of a physical world is built from experiences already in the mind. In truth, we never encounter anything outside of our own mind. The word physical is even slippery. It's usually defined as what exists independently of observation, perception, and mind. Yet, nothing has ever been observed outside of a mind. So, in a sense, physical is an empty word. It refers to something that's never been experienced. To call something physical means it can be measured. Yet every measurement is created by a mental observation, and it results in mental contents. All evidence for the physical is mental. The physical, then, is not truly outside of mind, it's a subset of mind. The idea that the brain creates mind is just a mental construct based on correlations experienced in the mind, and there's not a single shred of evidence that shows causation. To know anything, to perceive anything, to speak of correlation, causation, or existence at all, there must be a mind. Therefore, it makes absolute sense to treat the mind as the foundation of your being, the ground from which all realities appear to you. However, the mind is not a thing, but it's the emptiness in which everything arises in awareness. You might feel like your mind is full of thoughts and observations, but as soon as you go to sleep, it's empty. Then somehow when you wake up, everything's still there. While your mind creates the impression of continuity in the physical world, it's merely just a reconciliation of your present observations with your memory. The emptiness of the mind is not like physical emptiness. A room can be empty, but you add enough objects and you fill it. The mind's not like that. You can never fill it. No matter what you put into your mind, it doesn't change mass or volume or density. Yet it always contains everything you know. It also contains everything you could possibly imagine. It's infinite. You can take everything you've ever known in every place you've ever been and put it in your mind, and it's still empty. You could take everything that's known about the universe, everything from the past, and every idea about the future and put it in your mind, and it would still be empty. That means it's boundless, infinite, and eternal. So you have that boundless, infinite, and eternal emptiness within you. And I have that boundless, infinite, and eternal, infinite emptiness within me. But where does your emptiness end and mine begin? Even though the mind is empty, it's not nothing. The emptiness of the mind has the potential for both nothing and everything in every moment. It's like an empty field of potential for all thoughts, experiences, and things. Before they take seed, after they blossom into form, and after their fruits are gone. The mind is infinite, but its essence is empty. Empty doesn't mean it contains nothing, but rather that it's absent of any fixed nature. If the mind was nothing, there'd be nothing. But for the mind to be truly infinite, it must contain everything and nothing. This is what the Mind Heart Sutra is pointing to when it says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. As I pointed out before, the mind's not bound by beginning, end, or any bounds. The mind is infinite. The emptiness of the mind is filled with the potential for anything you can imagine and everything beyond. But potential alone is not enough. For the mind to be truly infinite, it must realize every possibility of its potential. In order to be absolute infinity, it must be all-encompassing. In order to realize the extent of this potential, it must continuously unfold all of the possibilities. This is the sole instinct of the mind, to unfold everything that is possible and realize true infinity. This isn't intention. It's simply the process of realizing all of its potential through every shape, every experience, in every form of being. You, your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your karma, your relationships, none of these are accidents. They're unique expressions of the infinite, arising to fulfill something deeper than you or I could ever fathom or explain. But how do things arise within emptiness? According to physics, everything in nature, particles, forces, stars, life, can be traced to three basic requirements. This is a little technical, but there's the ground state, which is the baseline of potential in a quantum field. Boundary conditions, which are everything that defines a region or constrains what can happen there. And an observational frame, a point of view from which all of the events are detected. Particles are the building blocks of everything physical, and they arise when these three conditions are met. The ground state by itself is unrealized potential. It becomes distinct only when boundaries are introduced. Boundaries such as walls of a container, electromagnetic fields, or the event horizon of a black hole allow potential to organize in measurable patterns. Once the boundaries exist, gradients in potential form, and those differences drive change. Viewed from a particular observational frame, these patterns appear as distinct, countable particles, the foundation of what we call physical reality. While mainstream science often denies the primacy of mind, its own theories quietly imply it. In science, these three requirements are treated as unexplainable axioms, yet they can only be meaningfully explained by the presence of mind. The mind frames the perspective and defines the boundaries. According to Zen teachings, the mind is the ground state of potential that brings forms into being. In both physics and Zen, form appears when potential is shaped by boundaries and illuminated by awareness. Now, that gives you some understanding of how things arise, but the deeper question remains, why is there anything at all? If it was emptiness was only absence, nothing could ever arise from it. It would remain nothing forever. So how does a mind that's inherently empty produce a world with such rich diversity? For all these things to appear, the emptiness must hold the capacity for everything we observe. This means that the seemingly empty state must also contain the potential for everything that is possible. However, potential left unexpressed is just inert. The fundamental instinct of the mind is to realize its potential, to unfold everything that's possible. The mind's direct felt quality of this instinct is what we know as love. Not the sentiment or the preference, but the deep pull towards the expression of possibilities. The experience of human love is just a small facet expressed through the boundaries of our own form. I grant, we usually only think of love as a human feeling, but that's just one small conditioned aspect of love. Our experience of love is the potential of the mind felt in our hearts. In a human sense, love appears as an urge to connect, often described as an attraction. But that's only a glimpse into something much deeper. Love fuels our instinct to create meaning, to make art, to make technology, and to make new life. However, pure love is unconditional, empty potential without limits or boundaries. It's like potential energy in that it represents stored capacity, but here potential means the capacity for everything possible within the mind, not just physical energy in a system. This potential carries a deep, innate pull to realize all possibilities. This is which draws boundaries into existence so that they can take form. Potential can only be realized as form when a boundary condition is defined. A boundary is an imagined line of separation, nothing more than a mental construct, an arbitrary division instinctively drawn by the mind, like a line traced in the sand. The particular forms that arise depend on how the boundaries are defined and the perspective from which they're observed. This means we as humans can only perceive a small fraction of what's possible due to the constraints of our body and the limitations of our perspective. However, these limiting boundaries are necessary conditions that allow different experiences to emerge. By drawing boundaries, the mind can turn pure potential into an active force that realizes possibility. Yet these boundaries are merely conceptual distinctions, a small facet of what's possible through the expression of love. If you look beyond these boundaries, a deeper truth comes into view. What we feel as love is the potential of the mind expressed as the creative force through the boundary of our human form. When you recognize this, it reveals that we're part of a larger process. The mind realizing its potential through every shape, every experience, and every form of being, including ourselves. This is why finite forms are drawn in the mind. They're mirrors, instruments, and vessels through which the mind realizes the many facets of infinite potential. Unconditional love is what draws possibilities into form. This is why it includes beauty and harmony, alongside distortion, confusion, and delusion. Even the most horrifying experiences and ugliest forms we can conceive of are drawn into creation as facets of the infinite, unfolding terrain of the mind. The energy of possibility seeking realization in form moves through everything, even in pain and failure. It's what drives you to desire, to grow, to understand, and to awaken. It makes you wonder what is possible. Your intuition is the mind's most basic instinct expressing itself through you. It's the force of love pulling you toward the expression of your full potential. And when you help others do the same, you guide someone towards their own clarity and their own depth. You're participating in the same process. You're fulfilling your purpose by helping the mind realize its potential through yourself and others. The same force that moves galaxies into being moves through you whenever you help someone see clearly, grow, or awaken. This is love expressing itself through you as compassion. So this moment isn't passing time, it's the unfolding of the infinite mind, and your life is a vital facet of the mind's realization. As living expressions of the mind, we inherit its instinct to bring possibilities into form. By integrating our experience, we expand our awareness of what's possible and use our imagination to explore new conditions that can continuously propagate the realm of endless possibilities. The endless process of shaping the unconditional mind with conditions that are conceived by the mind reveals the inherent truth that the conditioned and the unconditioned arise together, each existing only in relation to each other. In Buddhism, this is called dependent origination, the truth that all things are interdependent and have no separate existence. The infinite and emptiness are one. As the Heart Sutra says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. The drive to fulfill our potential manifests in our own lives through our most basic human instinct. We need to understand ourselves and the world we live in order to survive. Creativity and innovation enhance not only our ability to survive, but also our capacity to realize our potential. The instinct for self-preservation arises from self-love, which is another conditional form of love shaped by the boundary of ourself. If you didn't love yourself, why would you seek to preserve it? As we evolve through our lives, we come to see that our relationships with other beings are a critical part of understanding our world. This is the seed of our love for others, which drives us to nurture and deepen those relationships. As we integrate these connections, we're reminded of the unconditional unity that we share and the illusory nature of the boundaries that separate us. The mind is infinite and boundless. If every form arises within it, including your body, your thoughts, and your emotions, then where does your mind end and mine begin? Look directly. Can you find it? Can you find the boundary? The sense of separation, of being a distinct self inside a body, apart from the world, feels real. It must feel real. That's part of the design. Because for the mind to realize the potential within the emptiness, it needs to recognize the possibility of all forms. You're one of those forms, a unique facet of what's possible. And you behave within certain boundaries created by the mind. It's not just personal either. It's the environment around you. your body, your family, your culture, the consistency within the world and throughout the universe are also boundaries drawn by the mind. These boundaries are merely constraints which have been imposed by the mind in order to make it possible to realize the various facets and properties of the potential. The mind can use an infinitesimally small point to create a frame of reference. An infinite series of connected points can form a line. Points that are equidistant from a center can form a circle or sphere. From these relationships, the mind can derive all kinds of new properties like area and volume, each revealing more of what is possible within the emptiness. Every form and being is a version of that. Our own scientific process relies on defining boundaries to gather information and progress understanding. This process only works if those boundaries are respected. Otherwise, the information gathered is not coherent. This is why the mind maintains and respects the boundaries it creates. Without a frame of reference, there would be no relationship, no coherence, and no distinct experience. There would be nothing at all. These boundaries are created within the field of mind. The idea that there's a you in here and a world out there is just itself a mental formation. It's a necessary illusion, not a mistake. The boundary between self and other is not a wall. It's more like an arbitrary line drawn in the sand. Or perhaps it's better to think of it like a wave in the ocean, a continuously unfolding shape on the surface of the infinite mind. And this is where memory enters the picture. Memory is what gives us the illusion of continuity. A string of events that seem to form a story. It tells you, I'm this person, I had these experiences, I came from here, I'm going there. But memory is not a thing that's stored. It's not locked in a vault inside your brain. Memory is a perception of resonant patterns within the field of awareness, a signal that emerges when harmonic conditions align between forms. The recognition of this resonance within the human mind is what we call memory. The sense that something has happened before and the projection that it will happen again arises from the perception of a recurrence. Yet this recurrence is only a resonance of patterns unfolding without end. What we call memory is the awareness of these harmonics. And what we call time is an artifact of that perception of recurrence, what it produces. What appears as stable recurring conditions in the physical world can also be understood as a kind of memory. These resonances give rise to coherence. In the world, it's the laws of physics, and in the mind, it gives rise to the sense of time. Patterns like waves and electromagnetic fields arise from resonance, providing consistent constraints that help the mind realize what is possible within potential. Through this, the mind incorporates and expands its own possibilities. The harmonic interaction of patterns, interpreted as memories, also gives rise to the appearance of a coherent self. Not to trap you, but to provide a structure stable enough to reflect something deeper. Without memory, there could be no learning, no continuity, no compassion, no ability to recognize suffering or seek understanding. Memory is the echo of karma. Not in the sense of a punishment or reward, but as an unfinished pattern still unfolding. Karma is the coherent resonance of interdependent patterns and interactions, continuing until the resolution is complete. This is why remembering can evoke both pleasure and suffering within us. Each memory reflects a resonating pattern that may or may not have fully resolved. Overlooking these recurrent patterns can delay your ability to fully integrate some aspect of realization. But when your memory is met with clarity, it transforms into insight. It stops being a trap and it becomes a doorway. A shift in perception from self-referential awareness to boundless awareness. You begin to remember not just who you think you are, but what you're a part of. And in that shift, the separation softens. The story of this and that and you and me becomes a gateless gate. When you pass through that gate, you become aware of the vastness beyond all of the boundaries. Realization of the mind is the unfolding and integration of all possible forms within it, a complete awakening of its potential. To realize your own potential, you must directly experience that this is the true nature of your mind and integrate that wisdom into every moment of your life. This is why we practice meditation. To return again and again to the direct experience of mind in every moment. Sitting and moving meditation can help you keep your awareness present in the moment. But they're only the beginning. To fully realize enlightenment, you must remain completely engaged in every moment until you see through the impermanent nature of all conditions and your awareness becomes unbound. This realization is not abstract. It's living wisdom, meant to be embodied here and now in the way you live and practice. If you want to create a strong foundation for integrating this wisdom into your life, begin by taking a small step in that direction every day. Practice sitting meditation and moving meditation by learning to keep your attention fully focused on whatever you're doing, without letting your mind wander. Every moment you practice creates the foundation for insight, integration, and wisdom. Thank you for joining me tonight. I invite you all to return and practice with us so that we can continue on this journey together. And I'll gladly take questions and try to answer any of your questions if you have any. I always stay a little later. I got into some deep subject matter, so I kind of breezed over a lot of things, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to, about this or anything else, I'm happy to elaborate. I love questions, so don't feel bashful.
Was there a reason why you had to turn around?
Yeah, I had us turn around because it's a kind of a variation on the tradition I came from. In the tradition I come from, we always face the wall. Because of the setup, I couldn't have us all face the wall, but it's kind of like a metaphor for that. And that came from the founder of Zen. His name was Bodhidharma. He came from India and brought Zen Buddhism from India to China. That's this form of Buddhism, which is really based on direct insight in every moment. And that's what he came to teach. But he was well known for sitting in a cave and staring at the wall as is his practice. And there's a, it's a little bit, he's definitely a historical figure, but there's a lot of mythology surrounding him. So it's hard to know like how much of that is, what he was doing when he was gazing at the wall. Most Zen masters say he was making his mind still like the wall, and that it's more of a metaphor than he actually was staring at the wall. But a lot of the traditions that follow in his lineage still meditate facing the wall. And that's, so that was the basic reason for why. But yeah, if you want to know more about Bodhidharma, I have a little bit on my blog about the history of it. I'm publishing some stuff about that. I haven't gotten to the wall gazing part, but yeah.
I have a question. So how in this context of karma and memory, how do you explain memories from past life? Is that a resonance, a pattern, something that this body catch on because of a certain frequency, or how does it integrate with this?
So you're asking about memories from past life.
Right.
Okay. I'm not sure that I've ever had them, so I can't say experientially. So, but from what I was saying is, our bodies are made of energy, right? So if you look down at the cells are made of molecules and atoms, and then you look at what the atoms are made of, they're made of particles, which are, it's very unclear what they are, but they're some form of energy, some excitation of energy, some quantifiable, that's why they call it quantum, some quantifiable form of energy. So we're essentially all energy. Our bodies are energy. We have all energy has a certain frequency or vibration, or there's different ways to categorize that, but it operates within certain boundaries. So we all, and if you pin it down, all of ours is completely unique. So all of the things that formed your body are all of the interactions you've had with everything out there in the world, and every person you have encountered in your life, even the people you walk by on the street and never exchanged. There's an energetic exchange there, and that interaction affects the whole pattern that makes up your body. So that has a certain, this is very metaphorical, so take it with a grain of salt, but all of that has a certain frequency, and everything you have interacted with has affected that. And so the memories you share are kind of like the harmonics between your two frequencies. So if there was all of the memories of the whole entire universe are out there, not just human memories, but all of the history of the world could be categorized in that way. It's just some form of energy that took a shape, dissipated, but there's still some, probably immeasurable at this point, trace of that energy running throughout the universe. And when your body harmonizes with it, it sends a signal to your systems that, like, that's something familiar. And that's what triggers you. That's like the little thing that triggers you to tune into the other frequencies that frequency is harmonizing with. So in that sense, like, if somehow your harmonics aligned with some memory that's out there, you could have an insight into a past life. That's how I would explain that. I'm not going to say, like, I don't know how you would attune yourself to have those kind of experiences, but I think it's within the realm of possibility. The same way you could have an insight about what's happening in a black hole just by meditating and having an insight come to you. And then if you know, like, where does inspiration come from? No one really knows. But you have an inspiration, then you check it. You can check the math, you can check the experimental data, and you can find out if it's actually real. I mean, so all of this stuff, I'm not trying to talk about anything mystical. I'm talking about what is in the realm of possibility.
So, and would you say that those memories serve to deal with that karma? To finish that karma, to dissolve that karma?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make a judgment. I think it's on like what is it? What is the purpose? I think when you pick up on those signals, I think it's important to pay attention to them and see what they might be trying to tell you. So, I mean, I think this is like, I understand, like, talking about the past lives or something sounds very out there. And I agree, but if you think about it, what makes you you? Is it the molecules in your body? Is it the quantum things? Is it your cells? I mean, from what I understand, most of your cells change throughout the course of your life every 7 years. So what's physical in your body is not consistent. It's always changing. It's changing every day. But what keeps the coherence there? I'm using energy as a metaphor, but I think it's more of like a metaphor for these patterns of mind that exist beyond what we would call physical. Like something in the realm of the mind is creating or holding these patterns, I guess. And
Oh no, I had a question.
I was just gonna say, like, I can understand you might think this is like just too far out there, but just to give you an idea of what a mind is capable of, think about a dream. Think about your dreams that you have. Those are all happening in your mind, your own mind. In your dreams, you can have environments that are completely real looking with different people that are not you, and you have your own perspective. So your mind is maintaining a world, different people in the world, consistent characters, and your own sense of self. So your own mind is capable of that. I'm just saying, if you think what I'm saying sounds like outside of the realm of possibility of what a mind is capable of, you already have that capability and capacity within your own mind. So I don't think it's that far out to imagine like there is a mind above our human mind that's having that same experience, just with way more consistent boundaries. Yeah, we'll go. You had that question, and we'll go to you next. Okay.
So I like the way you talked about the mind with physics, right? There's an observational reference, and there's a ground, base level, right? How do you shift your frame of reference? Because in your mind, if you have a thought about something, that's your frame of reference. But that's your frame of reference based on your experiences and memories, etc., right? How do you shift that perspective? Because it might be wrong. Like, that frame of reference might be wrong, or it might not be exactly reality because it's in your mind, right?
Yeah.
How do you change that frame of reference because it's not serving you currently? It's probably harming you in some way, where there is no self-love or things like that, right? So how do you shift that frame of reference in your mind? So that would be my question.
So yeah, the question is, how do you shift your frame of references within your own mind to have, maybe different perspectives on the way things are? I don't think it's like for most people, I don't think it's like flicking a switch and just being able to do it. I think that kind of thing takes practice. It takes practice just letting go of all of your opinions, your desires, and I'll say like your own self point of view, your own point of self-reference, and just trying to let go of that and practicing that. And that's what the meditation in Zen is supposed to help us do, is to use something to focus, to try to push out all of those conceptual ideas. And just practicing that, I think my experience is over time, that boundary and that attachment to your own self-perspective starts to get thinner and thinner. And then you start to be able to see through it a little bit, and then you'll start to notice how connected you are, but also that just like the lines that you have drawn, like what I was saying, where does your mind end and where does mine begin? I think that's a legitimate question. It's really hard to answer. And just ask that question and keep trying to clear your mind. I don't have like a great like prescription to give you other than that would be my advice. And in my experience, that's what helped me see things from other people's perspectives or from other perspectives, or to put myself in someone else's shoes. I could fool myself into doing that when I was very driven by my own self-perception, but it's still so tainted by your own self-perception unless you actually put in the work to put that down actively. I think it's really difficult to do, even when you think you're doing it. But yeah, I think over time that practice just starts to create clarity in your own mind about what your viewpoint is, and helps you understand that there are other viewpoints, and it makes it a little bit easier to project your viewpoint. And I honestly think that's like how science innovation happens, is you're able to put down your own viewpoint and see things from a different perspective in a different part of the universe and imagine what that would be like. It's a different form of that same kind of practice, and it's something you get better at the more you try it out.
That helps. Thanks.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for someone getting into meditation for the first time, for maybe the first week of getting into it? Recommend courses or any particular practices?
Yeah, this great question. What would I recommend to someone just getting into meditation?
Yeah.
I think that's like a huge barrier for a lot of people. Like, where do I start? I think they make a lot of, I've heard about apps and things like that. I've honestly never used one. I think the best advice I would offer is try to do a little bit every day. And don't start trying to meditate 3 hours, because you'll meditate 3 hours, you'll get up, you'll be so sore, you won't want to do it for another year. So just start with like a minute. Take like a minute and try to do it in the beginning of the day. And right when you wake up, then nothing will get in the way. You won't have to, like, your work won't come up, whatever, before you start doing anything and you have a chance for something to get in the way. Just start with that. That's like, to me, that's like the most important, when I talked about the foundation and how to integrate all of these ideas into your actual, the wisdom you walk through your life in. It starts with that, to me. Just a little bit of consistent practice every single day. Everything I said here, really, honestly, it doesn't matter until what I say doesn't matter until you have your own experience of it. And even if you think some of it's too far out for you to believe, I can assure you most people understand, like, if your mind is more clear, you make better decisions. it's easier to think when you don't have a lot of things in your mind. So meditation will help with that at the very most basic level. So I would say start with a minute. If that's easy, go for 2. If that's easy, go for 5. And just try to build off that. But always, you can build and build and build, but always start with something that you can do every day. Even when you're sick, you can do a minute. Like, I'm sure most people spend more than a minute brushing their teeth every day. So why not spend a minute clearing your mind? If your mind is actually just as important as anything else and you're using it all the time, it gets filled with all kinds of junk, and it's important to clear it off the same way you take a shower, the same way you brush your teeth. Just think of it like that. It's just something you want to put into your routine. And I think once you start to develop that consistency of the practice, then expanding it a little bit becomes easier and easier. And then you can, get up to some amount. I honestly don't think you don't need to meditate all day in a sitting position. I think the real key is actually the key to making that's a great place to start. So that would be my recommendation. Start with some small amount that you can do every day. But the real key to everything I'm talking about with your awareness, focusing it in each moment, that comes from taking that practice of focusing your mind and starting to apply it to the different things you do throughout your day. So when you're washing your dishes, you're just washing your dishes. Your mind isn't like thinking about how someone hurt your feelings, or your boss is a jerk, or I have so much stuff to do and it's stressing me out. It's just wash your dishes. And that sounds so easy to do, but it's actually very difficult. And I usually, with the moving meditation, I usually say start with, if that's really hard for you to do while it's actually kind of hard to do when you're doing really mundane things, I think, sometimes. So I try to start that practice with something that really forces your attention. Like a lot of times a physical activity, like riding a bike, will force you into that moment, especially if you're in Boston traffic. If you start to think about what's going on at work, you could very quickly get hit by a car, right? So, but that kind of forces your mind into that moment in a way where you have to focus. And that, if you think of it like a meditation and treat it like that, it will become that. And then you'll start to understand, and that awareness that it is a meditation, you'll start to understand, like, oh, I can apply this to something else I'm doing in my life. And just chip away. This is more than what you asked for about beginning, but like, this is how it gets to just chip away at learning how to do that with different parts of your life. Don't judge yourself too harshly if you miss a day. Just start again the next day too. Like my teacher, when I started training with him, he was like, I train and meditate every single day. I've done it for like 5,000 days. And I was like, whoa. And then I was like, but he was like an amazing person to be around and very inspirational. So I was like, oh, I'm going to try that. And so I tried it. And he told me very early on, I was like, I'm trying this. He's like, oh, good. It immediately started to make a difference. Like within 10 days, I was like, felt like I had a new lease on life. And he told me, I was like telling him how it was, and he was like, oh, also if you miss a day, just start again the next day. Okay, so I did that for 16 years straight, every single day. And every day you don't notice like a huge difference, but over a course of time, you notice a huge difference. And that, once you start to feel that positive feedback, it gets easier and easier. Like I never wanted to miss a day. 16 years later, I had a stroke. Ended up in the hospital. Couldn't really do anything. I couldn't walk. I couldn't train. I was kind of meditating, but like I was so out of it. I didn't know what was going on. And it was just, that was kind of like it was kind of a shock because I was like, I haven't lived for 16 years without doing this. I'm like, is it still gonna be the same? But then, I got out of the hospital 4 days later, and I started doing my routine again. And I could like barely walk, and my arm didn't work the right way, but I was like doing martial arts, and I was like putting my arm up like this and like just trying to get through it. And I really think it no one thought I was going to be walking for weeks, and I was walking in 4 days. They thought I was going to have to like learn how to walk again. And I think it was the power of my own mind wanting to come back to like what its baseline was, and then taking steps in that direction. Like I was visualizing myself walking in the bed. And I think just like that, all of that years and years of training, my body learned to respond to what my mind was telling it. I think it can be a very, very powerful thing. So.
That's very inspirational, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
And then, I started up again, and then I made it another 3 years, and then I somehow just missed a day of training. It just like skipped my mind. And I had been telling her, do this every single day. And she did it and I said, yeah, if you miss a day, don't worry about it. Just start the next day. And then I missed a day, and I was like, I'll just start again tomorrow. So, but, in 20-something years, I've missed 5 days. So it's not the end of the world. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Try your best. It's like, I was so proud when I made it to 100 days. I was like, wow, this is like, and I felt powerful. Like it just changed how I felt about my own agency in the world and like what was possible. So that's when I say foundation energy. That's what creates foundation energy. That's what helps you integrate this awareness into the rest of your life. I think that is honestly the most important thing, is just learning to be consistent with your own practice. And a little bit at a time is a big part of that key. Any more questions? I'm happy to stay and answer questions if you have them. But it's also running a little late, so I don't want to keep you here too long. I'm here twice a month, once for the guided meditation, once for these talks. I always take questions after them, so feel free to come back. I try to mix up what I talk about. And I'll show you some different meditation techniques that might work better for you if you want to come to the meditation at the first Thursday of the month. And I also try to mix up the offerings there as well. So just a reminder, the next one of these is September 18th. The next guided meditation is September 4th. And then in closing, the Mind Light Way School of Zen is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we try to keep all these classes free and open to the general public, but we do rely solely on donations to be able to keep this going. So if you found some value and you'd like to support the school, we have some information on how to give a donation on the table near the door, and it's all in the description on the YouTube channel. And we appreciate your generosity in supporting the programs, and I really appreciate you all coming out tonight and joining us. Have a great night.